As it turns 2 AM, Gregory is detained and lost and found by Vanessa, and a message is left for him on the screens by her, which appears to be a recording as if it was live, and we are assuming that Vanessa and Vanny are indeed the same person. How did she manage the outfit change so quickly during a live broadcast? So in this recorded message, Vanny and Vanessa both speak to Gregory. Vanny is coming for him, but Vanessa is saying that his parents or the police are coming. So it seems weird that if they are the same person, Vanny and Vanessa must not be aware of each other's existence. Otherwise, when Gregory was captured, that would have been the end of his night. Gregory would, however, escape from Lost and Found using a screwdriver that he finds in order to open vents. And for some reason this screwdriver is never again used other than for opening vents, when it does seem like it would be a very useful weapon against animatronics. Gregory is then summoned by Freddy to Roxy Raceway, where Freddy has missed his recharge cycle seeking Gregory and so is now unable to move. Interestingly, as we enter this area, we find a note which details that the place has reopened and something happened to those kids. The fact that it says reopened heavily implies that the Pizzaplex itself has previously been closed down due to something happening with children. While moving through the backstage areas, we would find an El Chip Pinata, as well as a Glam Chica figurine and a flashlight upgrade. Within two of these small backstage rooms, we find some interesting objects. We find some rather cute looking rabbit art, which is signed with a V, implying that this is in fact Vanessa, as the same V is used by Vanny when signing things. And we do see that Vanessa appears to have a very cute art style, whereas Vanny's is a very graffiti and rough art style. We also find in one of the rooms that there is a chair with a lollipop lying next to it on the floor, which is never really explained but does seem kind of weird and ominous in a certain respect. Gregory would eventually reach the rehearsal room, and we find a note which details the fact that Monty will be used to replace Bonnie, further deepening the mystery surrounding Bonnie's disappearance. We also find that the AI for the animatronics actually appear to require rehearsal for performances, which is a bit odd, as the animatronics AI does seem to be very, very lifelike. Gregory then heads to the Performance Control Hub, where he acquires level 3 security and also appears to have lifted the comms block that was on Freddy. We also discover a very old performance disc here, which may imply that it is one of the most ancient of Freddy relics and is probably dating back to the very early days of the company. Gregory would then be besieged by the other animatronics inside the control hub until Freddy saves him by smuggling him out through a vent. Interestingly enough, we do get two weird things that are occurring at this point. The control hub doors are electrified as a defense, implying that for some reason the company needs to defend that room from what we presume would be the animatronics. And also, Freddy was out of power at the start of this hour, and yet he is suddenly feeling better and claims he has had a second wind. But considering the fact that he is a robot, can't just magically gain more power, he has to be recharged, so it is entirely possible that Freddy does have some kind of supernatural element to him. Plugging the vintage CD into the DJ booth in the main auditorium would then allow Gregory and Freddy to activate the controls for the show stage, allowing them down into parts and services, and as they do so, the hour turns to 3 AM, allowing Moon to once again take chase. Gregory is able to hide inside a recharge tube to avoid Moon, however Freddy is captured and dragged off by the animatronic. Seeking a level 4 security badge, Gregory would enter the Indo warehouse area, which has been confirmed to have actually meant to be a nursery for Glamrock animatronics, and it is a very unsettling area to visit. A note found within this area would actually reveal to us that the mini music men who pursue us throughout the vent system are in actual fact intended to be wind up toy prototypes. And so someone, according to Vanessa in this message, has broken them out to use them, which we are going to probably presume will actually be Vanny. It appears that within the Endo warehouse area, the animatronics here are being taught how to act and behave in certain ways. We see on most of the doors that there are actually instructions on how to behave around certain characters, such as helping to mend wounds and giving out balloons, but to not sneak up on people, which, as we see based on some of the doors having graffiti on it, which is implied to have been from Vanny, these animatronics are being taught the wrong things. As we see, they do sneak up on you when your back is turned. And as we can see from the staff bots that are nearby each of the doors, which mimic the activity represented on those doors, these animatronics have been trained to do bad behaviour. And it is further implied that Vanny is indeed the one doing this training, as we can see that the area is completely littered with references to the moon animatronic, and as discussed in the first part of this analysis of the game, there is certain characters which are used to represent certain other characters. Sun and Moon representing Vanessa and Vanny, and so all of the Vanny related moon items here are showing us that Vanessa is the one who is doing all this corrupting of these animatronics. There are two rather interesting points to this area. If you bring Freddy into the security office area here, he begins to have something of an existential crisis while being in the room, which is odd for a robot to do, and it potentially raises a lot of questions about how sentient these AIs are if Freddy is indeed not possessed. And we also find that there is a gold padded room, which is not necessarily required, I believe, to complete the area, but upon finding this golden padded room, there are a lot of hints within it which point towards the lore of the Crying Child in FNAF 4, specifically the Nightmare plush, as well as the door having the bed which heavily resembles that of the bed we see in FNAF 4. As the clock hits 3:15, Gregory returns to Freddy and finds Vanessa confronting him, who reveals that there is no record of Gregory on their systems, even though we have knowledge to the contrary before this, implying that Gregory may have in fact actually wiped himself from the system. And so this may imply that there is no one coming to find Gregory, as Vanessa pointed out in the beginning of this hour. The Parts and Services room is an interesting one again, as we find that there are actually holding cells in this area, which one of them has been severely damaged and broken out of by the looks of it. And within this area we find a Roxy figurine, implying that the behaviour of the animatronics that is making them be this way is indeed in some way tied into the deeper lore involving AF. We also see that in this area there is also several endos that are in cages, one of which has a red light on it, one has no light on it, and also another endo stands off to the side, which appears to be inactive as it does not ever actually move or interact with the player. And as far as can be told, these appear to be some sort of stylistic representation of the original missing children and the puppet. After reattaching Freddy's head, Gregory would discover that all of the other animatronics appear to have upgrades that have been planted in them. And strangely enough, we find that out of all of these, the most curious one appears to be Roxy's, as her eyes can literally see through walls. How exactly is that meant to be a thing when all throughout the game we have literally been hiding from her inside bins or pushchairs? So how exactly do her eyes see through walls if she can't find us? Returning to Rockstar Row, we are now able to enter all the other green rooms and collect what is inside them. We find that the Roxy's room only has one shirt within it. Monty's room, however, has a note regarding his behaviour, which again deepens the ties between him and Bonnie. And also we find a golden Freddy plush. which is curious as Golden Freddy is tied to several spirits, one of which is the Vengeful Spirit, who is also known to have an alligator mask, implying some kind of thematic connection going on here. It is, however, within Chica's room that we find the party pass that we need to continue progressing in the game. As we now have level 4 security access, it is possible we can now enter the secretive area of Roxy Raceway where the Roxy Salon is located. And within this area we find that there is a Roxy magnet that we can collect, as well as the Princess Quest 1 arcade console. And interestingly enough, as noted before, I strongly believe the original intent in these games was to use the magnets to access the games consoles in some way, and it does make sense that as there is no actual Roxy game, that this was intended to be the way that we find the Princess Quest games, as there is a Chica game and a Monty game. So why is there no Roxy game? Because Princess Quest is the Roxy game, because Roxy represents the deeper lore of the game, and it is even heavily implied in the Tales of the Pizzaplex books in one particular story that the fridge magnets are mentioned to be powerful enough to short out security, again highlighting their importance that they would have once had in the game. We would also find a note which clues us in on the arcade conspiracy that apparently exists, and we will see more of that coming in further hours of the game. Entering Phaser Blast, we discover that there's a note which tells us we need the Monty Mystery Mix in order to distract Chica, and also acquire the level 5 security badge, as well as a Bonnie Bowl ticket. Well, in the Phaser Blast arena we also discover that due to the design of the arena heavily featuring space theming, as well as the fact that lolhacks is actually depicted within this arena, then we can infer that Freddy's in Space 2 is in actual fact intended to be canon within the universe of FNAF. We also discover that above Phaser Blast there is also a secret room in which Vanny is staying, and we also get a glimpse of the Princess Quest 3 console, cluing us in that we have to then find the second one somewhere. We also find that in this area there is also a Fredbear poster before we discover Vanny's hideout, which is meant to hint to us that this area of the Pizzaplex is indeed one of the areas of Afton's influence, and so as there are only 4 of these posters in the game, then it makes sense that this is trying to hint us that Vanny is nearby. While in this winning booth area of the Phaser Blast, we would discover that there is a note which tells us how Vanessa got hired, which seems mighty suspicious as someone whose identity is withheld pulled strings to get her into position. We can presumably also detour at this point and visit the Cupcake Bakery, where we find a Monty balloon as well as a note referencing the Monty golf game has gone missing, and as we had a note previously telling us to look for the Chica feeding frenzy, it would seem that this note is now implying that we then need to go and find where the Monty one is. As there is also a Chica magnet that can be found in this area, this strongly supports the idea, I believe, that the magnets were intended to be used to interact with the arcade consoles. Another slight detour would also allow us to explore the Pirate Cove area, where we find a sun plush as well as a moon plush, which is inside the pirate ship where a secret living area is found, and the fact that it is a moon plush here implies that Vanny is in some way involved in this area, and also the fact that there is just a random TV with static on it heavily seems to imply that this is indeed Vanny, as we have been giving hints before that the way that Vanessa or Vanny receives the messages from Glitchtrap is by staring into a screen. Within Bonnie Bowl we can find a Bonnie plush as well as a Golden Monty plush, which is hidden next to what is actually the other side of Vanny's secret hideout. And it's possible that this may imply to us that Vanny indeed had something to do with the removal of Bonnie for Monty. We also get a note regarding the conspiracy of the arcade games, as well as another note detailing how to use the garbage disposal in order to dispose of Chica. And we will find in the back corridors that there is in fact Monty mystery mix here that we can use for that purpose. There are a few interesting bits of lore within this area, some of which go unexplained. We have ice cream server robots that appear to resemble Circus Baby. We have the paper pals from FNAF World present within this area, although we only see two of them, the Freddy and the Bonnie one. And we also get the hidden lore of Freddy lamenting his loss of Bonnie if you bring him into this area. Interestingly enough, the area which is the other side of Vanny's hideout is being guarded by more of the bad behaviour trained endos, which drop down out of the bowling lanes after we visit the other side of her lair, which has an interesting number written on the wall of 205 that we never really get an explanation to, and so we have to escape from Bonnie Bowl before these endos pursue us. Gregory can now head towards the food court area, which then takes him down into the back areas of where all of the Fazbear's food is prepared, and we enter a large silo area where Fizzy Faz is created. Chica appears in this area and pursues Gregory until he is trapped in an office, and the only way to get out is to use the pizza delivery system to create a pizza in order to lure Chica away. Gregory is then able to move around the kitchen areas in order to find the way to turn on the trash compactor in order to trick Chica into getting crushed. While doing this, we find notes within the area which detail more of the removal of the staff which takes place in the game. Upon successfully luring Chica into the compactor, however, she manages to avoid being crushed at first due to a piece of debris blocking the crusher, and when Gregory forces her into the crusher to remove the debris, she is then smashed by the machinery, but manages to grab onto Gregory and pull him with her down into the bowels of the Pizzaplex, where all of the trash ends up. This sewer area shows us that there appears to be some form of tunnelling going on beneath the Pizzaplex, where the walls are literally made of trash that's been hollowed out like a mine shaft. So the Pizzaplex is literally built on top of what appears to be a landfill, and it appears that there is evidence that someone has been living down in this area based on the small shrines that appears almost towards Chica that we find in the sewer area. And also we discover that there are several nightmarish versions of the staff bots down here, which are interestingly enough inscribed with the words "in your dreams," which is never really elaborated on why that is on them and who it's intended for, but they do seem to be guarding a certain area, because we are literally walking into the area, whereas whatever they were meant to be keeping in has been trying to go in the opposite direction. So these staff bots have been put here to guard whatever is inside the silo with the post-it note room, which is yet another room within the Pizzaplex which is very out of place and is never really given explanation. And we do see this room is literally covered in the severed heads of staff bots, as well as many post-it notes or pieces of paper which are covered in what appears to be a progression of intelligence by the entity drawing them, as we see binary, but we also see that there is drawings and writing involved, and so whatever has been kept in here, which does not appear to be here anymore, was slowly gaining sentience, as the fandom seems to confirm is the main theory, and yet whatever it is no longer here. And also it has built a small replica of the Afton family in the room, implying it is in some way connected to the Aftons. In order to get from this silo back into the main area of the Pizzaplex, we first have to travel through the laundry and staff areas of the building, and on the way we find another Fredbear's poster implying that the staff silo does indeed have some connection to William Afton and his activities. And Also, we find that the showers area has notes which we can find which would reveal to us that there was indeed a staff party which took place at 11:30. And based on what we see when we find the actual staff cafeteria, which has been absolutely mangled, we find that something has happened here, because this room would not have just been left in this condition. Like, this is recent, this has happened on this day. And so it's heavily implied based on these notes that the staff have been completely massacred by the endos. The same endos that Vanny was training for bad behaviour. And what do we find in the endo hub previously, in one of the areas? An animatronic that had a hat on with cake all over its face. This animatronic was trained to kill people at a party, as we see from doors in that area. So Vanny used the Glamrock endos, which are acting as her own personal thugs, as we've seen in Bonnie Bowl, to massacre everyone who worked in the Pizzaplex. And so, escaping from this area, Gregory would head back to Parts and Services in order to upgrade Freddy with Chica's voice box, which would bring us to 5 AM.